We're Adam and Joanne from InspiredTaste.net, and welcome to our kitchen. We're making our flaky pie crust recipe 2 ways, made in a food processor and by hand.
Start by measuring out the flour and add to a medium bowl. You need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. We will use all the flour eventually, but for now, only add 1.5 cups of the measured flour to the food processor, along with 1 teaspoon of salt. If you want a sweeter pie crust, add 1 tablespoon of sugar as well. This is optional. Pulse 2 to 3 times until combined. Grab 2 sticks or 1 cup of cold butter and cut it into 1/2-inch cubes. Scatter the butter cubes over the flour and process until a dough or paste begins to form. This takes about 15 seconds. There should be no uncoated flour. Scrape the bowl and redistribute the flour-butter mixture. Then add the remaining 1 cup of flour and pulse 4 to 5 times until the flour is evenly distributed. The dough should look broken up and a little crumbly. Transfer to a medium bowl, then sprinkle 4 tablespoons of ice water over the mixture. Using a rubber spatula, press the dough into itself. The crumbs should begin to form larger clusters. If the dough falls apart, add 1 to 2 tablespoons of extra water and continue to press until the dough comes together. Remove the dough from bowl and place in a mound on a clean work surface. Work the dough just enough to form a ball. Then cut the ball in half and form each half into discs. Wrap each disc with plastic wrap and refrigerate at least 1 hour and up to 2 days. You can also freeze it for up to 3 months. Just thaw it overnight in the fridge before using. Making this dough by hand is not too different than by food processor. Start by adding 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and some sugar to a medium bowl. Remember, the sugar is optional. Stir 2 to 3 times until combined. Scatter 1/2-inch cold butter cubes over the flour and mix briefly to coat the butter with the flour. Now cut the butter into the flour with a pastry blender, working the mixture until the flour has a coarse, mealy texture, very similar to fresh breadcrumbs. It will actually stick together when pinched. This takes 1 to 2 minutes. Now add another cup of flour. Then work the butter and flour with the pastry blender until the flour is evenly distributed. The dough should look crumbly with pea-sized pieces. Scatter 4 tablespoons of ice water over the mixture. Then, using a rubber spatula, press the dough into itself. The crumbs should begin to form larger clusters. If the dough falls apart, add 2 to 4 tablespoons of extra water and continue to press until the dough comes together. Remove the dough from the bowl and place in a mound on a clean work surface. Work the dough just enough to form a ball. Cut the ball in half, then form each half into discs. Then wrap each disc with plastic wrap and refrigerate at least 1 hour and up to 2 days. You can also freeze it for up to 3 months, just thaw it overnight in the fridge before using. To roll out the dough, remove one of the dough discs from the refrigerator and let sit at room temperature for 5 minutes. Lightly flour your work surface, top of dough, and rolling pin. Then gently bash the top of the dough, turn and bash again. This makes the disc of dough thinner without the difficulty of rolling. As you do this, if the edges begin to crack, don't worry. Just press them back together and continue on. Once the disc is thin enough to roll, use the rolling pin to roll out dough to a circle that's 1/8 of an inch thick. Again, if you notice a crack, don't worry, just press it back together. Be sure to check if the dough is sticking to the surface below. Add a small amount of flour when necessary. Check for size by inverting your pie dish over the dough round. Look for a 1-inch edge around the pie dish. To transfer the dough to the dish, starting at one end, roll the dough around the rolling pin, then unroll over the dish. Gently press the dough down into the dish so that it lines the bottom and sides of the dish. Be really careful not to pull or stretch the dough. If the dough rips or is thin in one area, just pull a little dough from the edge and cover it. It will be just fine. Then use a knife or a pair of kitchen scissors to trim the dough to within a 1/2 inch of the edge of the dish. Fold the edge of dough underneath itself so that it creates a thicker border that rests on the lip of the dish. In areas that are a little thin, grab some extra dough and bulk it up. Then, crimp edges using your pointer finger of one hand and 2 knuckles from the other hand. Refrigerate the dough at least 20 minutes or freeze for 5 minutes before baking.